And so coming in here, walking in these doors, and then all of a sudden you have 82 nationalities around you sitting across the table at dinner, just sparks curiosity, right? And really good things come from that.
Absolutely. And so those are some of the the benefits to both the students that are from there, that are from here in the United States, and students that are international. I'm from Texas as well. I'm from the Panhandle area, just south of Amarillo, and yeah, you're exactly right. You can drive here for hours and hours and hours and still be in Texas. So,
Right. I made the drive from Dallas to San Diego, and
oh yeah.
half the trip is to El Paso.
Yeah. Beautiful drive, but yeah, it's quite a haul for sure.
Welcome to the EduData Podcast, a podcast that serves as your weekly guide to the data driving higher education. We are your hosts. I'm Jamie Boggs.
And I'm Timothy Davis. Join us every Friday for weekly breakdowns of the most important data, trends, and topics in higher education.
The EduData Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the EduData Podcast. I'm Timothy Davis, joined as always by Mr. Jamie Boggs. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Timothy. How we doing today?
Doing pretty good. Today we have a guest with us. Shaun Carver is the Executive Director and CEO of the International House at University of California, Berkeley. Thanks so much for joining us today, Shaun. How are you?
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show, Timothy and Jamie. Nice to meet you both.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Get us started a little bit about the International House and your work there and your role and what the work of the International House at Berkeley is.
The whole movement started really in 1909. And so our founder is a man named Harry Edmonds, who was he was working at the YMCA that was affiliated with Columbia University. And one fall frosty morning, I think a lot of us can relate to that today. It's kind of cold all over these states. Was walking down the steps of the library, and he passed a student in the morning. And as you did, say good morning as you pass folks. And the student stopped and gave kind of a curious look, and that sparked this conversation. And the student said, I'm from China and I've been in New York for 3 weeks, and you're the first person to talk to me. And so Harry was really touched by this interaction, went home and talked to his wife, Florence, and they decided to do something about it. And that was, they started inviting international students into their home for what they call Sunday supper. Proper sit over a meal, has happened for centuries and millennia, people sitting around a fire, sitting around a meal, having conversations, breaking down barriers, learning from each other. And this great community started to build. Eventually, the vision of having an international house where the international students and domestic students could live together, share perspectives, learn about each other, have better understanding of themselves, about the world, about issues, leading to better friendships, better relationships, and a more peaceful world. John D. Rockefeller Jr. funded the first iHouse in New York in 1924. 1930, they opened in Berkeley. In 1932, they opened up at University of Chicago. So we're one of 3 of these international houses. We house about 620 students and scholars here. They're all affiliated with UC Berkeley. So about half are undergrad, half are graduates. And we have about 82 nationalities and about 20%, 18% domestic students living here. They live together. We do dining here. So they're still doing the dining tables and the conversations, the friendships that happen from that. And this is all about, learning about different people and learning that diversity is an incredible environment to be in. If you have an open mind and you're willing to listen and learn and try to understand, really transformational things happen. That's what we're about.
Sure, that's awesome work being done for certain. And as a data podcast, we spend a lot of time talking about enrollment numbers and trends in higher ed. And I think your expertise hits on a lot of areas we've not touched before. So can you talk a little bit just about the international student population in America and what's happening there now as we're all kind of worried about this upcoming cliff? Where are we with international students?
it's either counterintuitive or surprising that we're actually doing really well with international students. The last survey that came out shows that about 1.1 million students from over 200 countries currently studying here in the United States. And that's been increasing, I think, 40% over the last, within the last decade. So,
Wow.
the number of international students coming is increasing and growing. And also the diversity of where folks are coming from. Certainly when you look at that 1.1 million, about half are coming from China and India. And being the two most populous countries in the world, you would kind of expect larger numbers from those countries. But there's some 200 different countries that are being represented in colleges and universities. That creates a really um, an incredible environment on campus to be exposed to folks that you may have never been exposed to before, learning about their history, their culture, their perspectives. That's invaluable for us as a country, as well as for domestic students who maybe don't travel or don't get to see the world. Be sitting in a classroom from someone from Sri Lanka and listening to their views and their history and trying to understand the perspective they come from. That's the kind of learning global citizens and people in this society need are those skills.
Absolutely. I remember my time at university. There were a lot of student athletes that had traveled international. I was at an institution that was primarily athletic based, and a lot of kids from South America, from Central America, a few kids from overseas, and then kids, just from the backyard. We were a small private institution, and so yeah, it was kind of that dream of the melting pot, and a lot of really cool friendships developed out of that, and a lot of cool community activity as even some of those international students settled here.
Yeah,
Um,
we talk about the domestic students here at IHOuse. It's about 18% of it's. Throughout the history, our almost 100-year history, it's changed as international enrollment has gone up and down, and as the states have gone through the changes in views and in policies and politics. We've been up as high as 50%. Half the house was domestic. But it's interesting though. If you come from, I'm from California originally, moved around a lot, but originally from California and did most of my schooling here. I have to say I had pretty good diversity within my schools. California itself is fairly diverse, and the schools I was going to had a lot of diversity. But when you look at other domestic students, depending on where they are geographically, and there could be quite different. And there may be folks that are from certain states that weren't exposed to the diversity that I had. And so we think that, well, it's called International House. I think the benefit to our domestic students in some ways is greater than it is to some of our domestic students. If you're a European, a 2-hour train ride, you're in a different city, different culture, different food, different language, shared history, maybe. You're probably a little bit more used to that. But if you're from, like my dad's from Central Texas, the amount of diversity that you had is probably quite different. And so coming in here, walking in these doors, and then all of a sudden you have 82 nationalities around you, sitting across the table at dinner, just sparks curiosity, right? And really good things come from that.
Absolutely. And so those are some of the benefits to both the students that are from there, that are from here in the United States, and students that are international. I'm from Texas as well. I'm from the Panhandle area, just south of Amarillo, and yeah, you're exactly right. You can drive here for hours and hours and hours and still be in Texas. Yeah, where so.
Right. I made the drive from Dallas to San Diego, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
half the trip is to El Paso.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful drive, but yeah, it's quite a haul for sure. Well, yeah, could you speak a little bit to the reason that international students hold American institutions in high regard, and really what they're looking for when they come internationally to pursue their education?
Yeah, it really depends on the situation that they're coming from, whether it's a developing country, what the education opportunities are within your country. I spent over a dozen years in China in higher education working in international ed. So I can speak a little bit more from that context, but certainly, it's different. But you look at China, there's over 13 million people take the college entrance exam every year. And the acceptance rates in their tier 1 universities is only 5 or 10%. So there's like 12 million really great candidates that don't have an option to go to a good university. So then you say, well, open up international education. Now they can go to the UK, they can go to the United States, Canada, Australia. They can get out of the country and have access to a really high quality education that they don't have at home just because of the structure they're coming from. And being in that, you always think it's these elite or the students, but there are students that have come from very humble backgrounds that have worked extremely hard to prepare for that one day, that one test, and just missed out. There's no retake like the SAT where it's just like, well, I didn't get the score, I'm just going to take it again. This is it. Everybody takes it on one day, one test, one shot, and that determines whether or not you're going to get into a good university, a trade school, or vocational school, or you're going to have to go out and get a job. For those folks, there's a lot of really high quality students that just missed out when they have the opportunity to go abroad. And we see that they do with, almost several 100,000 Chinese students studying in colleges and universities here. It just gives them an opportunity to a high quality education that they wouldn't have at home. Some, are coming from countries that don't have the research facilities, the labs, the access to funding, the opportunities that they have here. Keeping in mind that a lot of these international students are studying maths, computer science, engineering, some in business and management as well. But things that are very capital intensive in universities, and to get the education that they want to have, they have to leave their home country to go do so. There's a lot of different reasons depending on where they're coming from, but U.S. has always been a top destination. We have 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States. The resources that we have here, the quality of education across the board is world class, and just create opportunities for folks that they just would never get anywhere else.
Yeah, we certainly all benefit from those individuals coming here. Like Timothy said, I was in college a lot longer ago than Timothy was, but you mentioned Sri Lanka. I had a good friend that taught me all about cricket and told me why baseball was terrible, and it was a good give and take relationship. Some of the data you sent over was about the economic impact of international students, specifically in California, and it appears to be major. The financial impact benefiting American society and American economy. How is that measured, and what does that look like in everyday life?
Well, certainly, we're here in Berkeley. We're in the Bay Area, and you can't talk about the Bay Area without Silicon Valley. And looking at the companies, the high tech companies there, I think it's 70% of the companies in Silicon Valley were started by people who came over on a student visa.
Oh wow!
So these are people. I think that they're coming to the United States. They're getting an education. They're coming and starting being entrepreneurs. They're creating life changing products and services for us. They're hiring people. They're buying houses. They're investing in our country. I mean, they really are. The benefits of international education is phenomenal. And when people talk about we need to cut it back, I just question why. Why don't we want the world's best and brightest coming and contributing to our society? And that's what they do. Certainly a lot of them want to go home too. They want to come here. They want to get this experience. They want to get this education. They want to get exposure to the U.S. And then they want to go home and make an impact on their own communities. And something we see a lot here at iHouse isn't just people coming here because they want to immigrate to the U.S. It's also they want to go home and have an impact. But having access to the world's #1 public university of University of California, Berkeley, and then going back home. I mean, these are people that have an opportunity to really be change makers in their countries and making differences in their communities.
Absolutely. I think that brings us to a point where we can discuss the contrast of the perception of American education and the American higher ed system from a domestic perspective and from an international perspective. As you've kind of laid out, the international perspective is very positive, but it's obviously a bit mixed here domestically now, as some folks look to pursue simply certificate programs and pursue trades, which have certainly been kind of ignored and not developed over the past couple of decades, as we've seen from other research. But yeah, there's a lot of opinions floating around domestically. And so how do you frame that, and how do you think about the issue of the domestic perception of American education?
Yeah, well, certainly as a California taxpayer and, and having 2 young kids who are starting to think about university and college, thinking that as I'm paying into the University of California budgets every year with my taxes, the idea that my children would get pushed out for an international student who pays higher tuition would be difficult. And I totally understand that. I mean, I'd be sad if my daughter or my son doesn't get into Berkeley. Um, but I also understand that the benefit that international students bring to make UC Berkeley the university it is. It's because of the diversity that we are as good as we are, and why our programs and our research is world class. There's a reason why iHouse has 8 Nobel Prize winners as our alumni, is because this environment that we've created of openness, of diversity, of exchanging ideas freely. And but to keep in mind, the University of California system put a cap on international enrollment at Berkeley, UCLA, and UC San Diego, which are the top international destinations in the UC, of 18%. So even when you think about, the impact, we're talking about 18% of the population on campus is international, and most of those are in graduate programs, not undergraduate programs. I think it gets a bad rap that people think it's 80% is international, and there's no California kids coming to Berkeley. There's more California kids coming to Berkeley this year than in previous years, and I think the benefit that international students bring to campus is worth the trade-off of losing some domestics because of it.
Mhm.
It's just an international world, and you have to be literate in an international world. You have to understand different cultures and different ways of communicating, and you need to understand how to function productively in a global world when you're surrounded by differences. And I think, the current trend is kind of the opposite way of, like, we want to isolate ourselves in bubbles. We want to push all the outsiders out and cancel them and not even listen to them. And I think, having a classroom with a lot of perspectives and real civil discussion and debate is essential to higher education. That's what we're trying to teach folks. So I get it on both sides. I'm like, oh, my daughter can get in. No, my son can get in. At the same time, if they do get in, I want to make sure that it's the best environment that they can possibly get.
As we wrap up, we see 1.1 million international students, all time high, rising at the fastest rate in 40 years. How is this projecting moving forward? Do we project to continue on the trend of a rise of international students? Is there any threat that we're looking at when we talk about the enrollment cliff of American students? What's the future look like?
Yeah, well, I think anybody in this industry that's since November 3rd is probably thinking the same thing. And I know a lot of us are really our applications opened up a couple of weeks ago, and we're really tracking applications right now of international students to see the impact of the change of administration, the change of policies. Certainly the potential change to federal funding to universities and how that impacts graduate programs, research opportunities, funding for graduate students, all of those things that are kind of up in the air right now, we're probably making everyone feeling a bit nervous. I can say right now, what we're seeing is there's no decline in the interest of international students to come here, which is good. But it just takes one executive order that, cancels H-1Bs or changes the OPT, CPT options for them, or, just eliminates student visas for China for some reason. Those things are just the signature away from really impacting us. So we're really in this interesting time where there's a lot of rhetoric, a lot of unknowns, but the United States has always been the top destination for higher ed around the world. We continue to be so. I don't think it's going to change. Our institutions are phenomenal. We have more, top universities than any place else in the world. I think even in this current environment, our campuses are great places for international students to come and feel welcome. I'm optimistic, but we're cautious on our forecasting for next year, and we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think we got one last question for you here, and it's kind of a follow-up to that. With the administration change, I think it's easy to feel out of control. It's easy to feel small in the face of a federal government that's making as many changes as the current one is. But what are some everyday sort of actions that people in our audience, admissions professionals, data professionals, can do to one, kind of capture the magic that you have at International House here and foster international student relationships with domestic students and create that culture to recruit international students and to protect this valuable pipeline to our market, but this valuable pipeline into our society?
We're really thoughtful about our admissions. And everyone listening to this will say the same thing. We go through every application. We're really looking for certain things to make sure the fit is there. We just try to create a really complicated community. With 82 nationalities with 600 people, our biggest is domestic at 16%. So for every domestic student walks in, there's like 6 people around them that are different than them. And so no one feels dominant. Everyone's uneasy because everyone's surrounded by all of this difference, all this diversity. And that creates, we think, a really important part of this experience, which is there's no dominant culture. Physically we're in the United States, but you walk in here tonight, we have a coffee hour. Every Wednesday we do a coffee hour celebration, and tonight's West Africa. So the West African countries are coming together. They'll throw a big coffee hour party, music, food, trivia, sharing their history, sharing their culture with folks. And that happens every week. And so, embrace diversity, create an environment where people want to share, people want to listen, people want to try to learn from each other. I was talking to one admissions person, and they were saying, well, we do our part. We check the boxes. They want a certain amount of diversity, and we admit folks, and we fill in our things. And then they get to campus, and the experiences are just thrown into the general population of campus, and they're isolated, they're alone, they don't feel part of the community, and they feel like it's the campus. So I think you really need to tie those together, which is, on the admission side, yes, you bring the diverse people to campus, but from the student life folks, you have to make sure you create this environment where they feel welcome in the classroom to share their thoughts, even though they may be unpopular, as well as in the community where they feel welcome to go and experience life in the U.S. and feel, experience from the great diversity that is on these campuses. So it's a very holistic approach, I think, to, it's not just for the data folks and the admissions folks. I've been there. It's, we're trying to meet goals and targets and move the needle here, move the needle there. And, but doing that is getting them here. It's making them feel welcome, and creating a community is the other side of that, which I think becomes kind of self-fulfilling. At that point you become a place people want to go to. So you attract the right people, you attract the diversity that you want, because people see the community as a place where I can see myself, a place where I'm welcome. And that's really important for the success of the institution.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Where can folks find you and follow along with your work?
Yeah, LinkedIn is always a good place to start. So anyone listening, find me on LinkedIn and send me a network. I'd love to keep you updated on what we're doing. International House has a website as well. And if you're not coming to Berkeley, but you're going to Chicago, if you're in New York, there's my sister institutions as well that would love to welcome you. And, we feel very strongly about what we're doing and would like to, I envision a day when there's an iHouse on every campus. And this is the place that brings the community together. And right now that's needed on college campuses.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we'll have a link to your LinkedIn profile in our show notes, as well as a link to the Open Doors report, which is where we got some of the figures that we cited today. But thank you again for your time and coming on the show. For Jamie Boggs, I'm Timothy Davis. We'll catch everybody in the next episode. Have a good rest of your day.
The EduData podcast is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Artis Kadu, Dustin Ramsdale, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.